to Advisory Council, August 20th, 2025. Great to see everyone. We've got some folks online. We've from our council. We've got Lexi and Lisa here. And Talee should be joining shortly. So I'm going to do really quickly roll call here of the council members. If you can just let me know you're here. Talee, I'm just going to make sure I don't see you, but I'm going to say that real quick. Sean.
Here.
Katie Stafford Cunningham. Here. Laura Fife. Here. Kate Barrow. Here. Kim Dotson.
Tom Sean here.
Ian Titus. Jim Wiltz.
Here.
Lexi Westerfield.
Here.
Melissa Keys.
Here.
Carrie, do I say your name right? Is it Lee? Lee. Okay, I want to make sure. For some reason I thinking that was not it. Carrie, you here?
I'm here.
Derek Nord.
Yep.
Lisa.
I'm here.
Loretta Springer. Kim Hahn. And Kelly Mitchell.
Good morning, everyone.
Okay. All right, go ahead and get started here. We'll get to my. Finally, help me. Sorry, this is when I need two screens. You get me back with slides. It's not. Perfect. Okay. Always start all of our meetings. All people are empowered to live, love, work, learn, play, and pursue their dreams. As you guys know, we start every meeting with that, and most of the meetings that we have at DDRS. Okay, we have a pretty big agenda today with welcome, introductions, a video. Kelly is going to share the recent announcement, and I just realized I spelled announcement wrong, so just ignore that. DDRS, she'll share a little bit about that. And then Holly is going to be on the agenda for mainly for the rest of the time with waiver amendments, waitlist and invitations issued, LCAR, beads data, and case management B4, as well as Teresa Colzar will be sharing, really, she had recently shared some updates with the council and will be addressing any questions that you guys might have had. I'm going to turn it over, Kelly, if you're okay, and then I'll get the video teed up while you're sharing the DDRS, or if you want to just.
I can do that. So good morning again, everyone. Kelly Mitchell, Director for now Division of Disability, Aging and Rehabilitative Services, which is our announcement. We did address this during the recent quarterly financial review, and there was a public announcement made, but really just wanted to speak to it just for a bit this morning before we launched into our advisory council meeting. So the former Division of Aging and Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services have now merged to create a new entity with a familiar name for those of us who've been around for a while, and I might be one of those. So we will be known as the Division of Disability, Aging and Rehabilitative Services, or DDRS, which I never really stopped saying, I don't think. That was a difficult.
Just carry that on.
That was a difficult muscle memory to lose. So we're really excited. The work of aging obviously continues and will be highlighted and supported by the Bureau of Better Aging, housed within the Division of Disability, Aging and Rehabilitative Services. So the Bureau of Better Aging then joins three bureaus that were previously housed in the Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services. So the Bureau of Child Development Services, which oversees the first steps, the Bureau of Disability Services, or BEADS, and then our Bureau of Rehabilitation Services, BRS, which we're going to hear from both of those today. Really excited about our future. This isn't really just a restructure or rebranding, although you are going to see some new logos. We're working on updating a web page, which is much friendlier, user friendly, and materials to better convey our message and make it easier for those we serve and our partners to access the information and support. We worked laboriously, I will say, over the last 6 months or so, working with the team. We've developed 11 strategic action items for aging. Excited to move forward with that. In addition, we've done a comprehensive policy and procedure review, and that created an additional 15 actionable items to really make the work more efficient and effective and addressing our outcomes. I'm also excited to announce, and with us today is Erin Wright. She will be serving as the director for the Bureau of Better Aging. And I don't think Vanessa is with us, but Vanessa Combard will be our director of policy and strategic initiatives with the Bureau. Over the coming months, we'll be formalizing that structure, putting it in place, filling some positions that quite frankly have been on hold for a bit. So I know the team within aging is excited. For those of you that work directly with aging, the faces haven't changed. Your contacts are still there. The way to get in touch with aging remains. There may be some title changes. We're shifting the structure to better support the work and create a team environment to move us toward the outcomes we desire. So we'll be sharing more in the coming months, but we're really excited. And Erin, wave your hand. Yeah. Erin is already doing a great job. We're in transition, so until we get a few more positions of support in place, I'll still be kind of shoring up the aging team as an additional resource. And once that gets put in place, Erin will be fully leading the Bureau. That's it.
Okay. Look at the agenda. I think we're ready for the video. So I'm going to share this video. I don't know, Lexi, if you want to say anything about this video that you shared with me that you star in.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and introduce it. Thank you. So this is an interview video that was done with Noah and Sean. Was it Proof Digital?
Proof Digital, yeah.
Yeah, so this was with Proof Digital to make for like our website for SAI and YouTube for SAI to kind of talk about like kind of what our views and our passions and things like that are. So Erin McGuire, our president, and me as vice president were asked to come film some little video segments. They just kind of did some interviewing with us and asked us some questions. We got to answer the questions. And this is one of the videos. I think we have 2 out now. And I just got asked to review another one. So I think there's another one coming out soon. But yeah, enjoy.
Awesome. I can hit play right now.
I recently did the hands-off. That was a thing that I believe happened on April 5th.
Yes.
And it happened nationwide. And so I spoke in Lafayette, Indiana,
Okay.
about the Medicaid and everything. The one thing that surprised me about that is how many people came up to me and said, you did an awesome job, and we are grateful that a person with intellectual disabilities actually came out and spoke about that. So
it's important to share your stories and tell policymakers, especially, what they're doing and how it impacts your life and now the life of your daughter.
yes.
If you could just kind of summarize, self-advocacy, advocates of Indiana, why is it so important?
The reason why I think it's so important is because we need more people with disabilities to get out there to raise their voice. And I always say this, like for the CCIRs, be like the Sasha Fierce. Just get out there and advocate for yourself. It's gonna feel scary at first, but don't let anybody bring you down.
Yeah, have courage.
Have courage, be yourself and advocate for yourself.
If you're creating a policy, if you're designing a new building, if you're renovating a building, if you are having events through your parks department in your towns, no matter what you're doing, our community deserves a voice, because if people who do not have experience with disabilities are trying to create access for people with disabilities, it's not always great. You need us. You need a
Right.
power chair, and then a bariatric power chair, and then a manual chair to test out that bathroom you are building to make sure it fits our chairs.
Right.
Our voice needs to be in everything, and it's might be hard to fathom, but like the importance of it, but it is so, so important.
Great, thank you so much, Lexi. That was awesome. Appreciate you sharing that video. Okay, nice.
Thank you.
Give me 1 second here. Okay, we're gonna move right along to Teresa Hobazar. If anyone had a chance to review the information we sent, has any questions, thoughts, for Teresa?
Can I, Jessica, I would just like to say, I really appreciate all the data. Every time you come, there's tons of data, and that is so helpful. And I really appreciate that, Teresa, because I think the numbers speak to the goals, and we are employing people in competitive integrated employment, just like the state wanted. So kudos to you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks, Katie. And I will point out one of those data pieces. Some of you may have heard this at the most recent quarterly financial review, but I was just going to kind of summarize a couple things on here, but I don't want to take a lot of time. Really, where is VR focused right now? Certainly all the day-to-day, serving individuals, serving everyone who's eligible, serving that increased population that we've been seeing over the last few years, but really focus on outcomes, because that really speaks to the value of the program better than anything. And then focused on, this is old news now, but stretching our resources, right? In a time where resources are maybe not as readily accessible, stretching our resources to serve that growing population. So we did have a 43% increase in people exiting with employment this last state fiscal year over the prior year. So we're very proud of that goal, and thank all of our partners and vendors for helping us get there. And then the second place, again, we're really focused is just, again, stretching those resources, stretching our capacity to serve everyone who's eligible with those available resources. So there's lots of different strategies that we're taking to do that. Those are some high-level ones listed here, but again, happy to answer any questions you all might have.
I had one question on, under additional updates on the establishment grants. Were those grants maxed out? Meaning, did we use all of the money that was allocated for those grants?
So the establishment contracts, these are contracts with providers. Without getting too in the weeds, we put out a request for funding, coming up on a year ago, maybe, for our current employment service providers to enter into a contract with what we're calling establishment projects. That's kind of language from our federal regulations. And we laid out what needed to happen through those projects. So it was really about building capacity to serve individuals. A lot of our providers are having some of those same challenges we had many years ago in terms of not having enough staff, having a lot of turnover, sometimes having waiting periods to serve folks, or maybe not get to serving folks as timely as they would like. So this contract opportunity would require those providers to put up our required non-federal match. So they're providing the 21.3% match. And then that's enabling us to draw from our federal formula grant that we would otherwise not be able to match. So there really wasn't like an upper level or lower level. We were able to fund all completed proposals. There was one incomplete proposal we weren't able to award a contract for, but all completed proposals did receive a contract, and those did launch last month.
Thank you.
This must be on streaming on YouTube.
It's, yes,
It's not.
it is, well, it is, I know it is, because I'm checking with, someone from our beat staff's on, well, it's on the Zoom, it's on the Zoom link that's on the public notice. Someone's on from our staff that used it, but I'm checking, someone else said it's making them give a password, but it shouldn't. Is that what they're saying?
No, it's, she just said it's not on, not streaming.
It should be on the Zoom, the link that's in the public notice, Sean, that we put out. That's the link you use to get on to the public. The streaming of it.
And that's separate from the YouTube link if somebody wants.
They then put it on, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. Someone else was saying they need a link, but it's, or a password. It should not need a, you should
It's
not
not
need a password.
streaming live on YouTube, it's streaming on Zoom. And that was in the public notice, so people should be able to access it that way.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
Anything else you all wanted me to highlight, or other questions? Comments, jokes, stories? Well, take it all.
Just celebrating that number again, might want to highlight that increase in employment, exiting with successful employment outcomes. I think that's quite significant.
Yeah. So that was about just under 2,100 individuals that exited with competitive integrated employment. And keep in mind, by the time someone exits with employment, they've already been working for at least a few months, sometimes a year or more. So in addition to that, almost 2,100 exiting with employment, there were several other individuals that were placed last year. They just have not gotten to the point of either, that stabilization yet, or have not gotten to the point of exiting the program yet.
Since you mentioned stories, this is Kate with Governor's Council for People with Disabilities. Do you have any stories, maybe on the employer's side, to share? Or I would love to hear any story, but hearing a positive outcome from an employer about how the process went, the positive response to hiring people with disabilities in a competitive integrated setting. I think that would be beneficial, not just for us to hear, but also the community at large, to kind of entice more employers to hire folks.
Yeah. So we always, a feature of our annual report, which is due at the end of every year in December, the bulk of that annual report is to highlight those positive experiences and those stories of success. So that is on our website. I think there's 5 or 6 individual stories that are featured there. And then we'll be doing another one this year. So we'll have a whole new slew of those successes that will be in the annual report. So we can get a link out so you can see that, kind of know where that is on the website. And then again, a new one will be coming. And on that note, for those familiar with CSAVR, the Council of State Administrators of Vocational Rehabilitation, kind of the national VR director membership organization, they are doing 100 stories in 100 days right now. So you may want to check out their social media links as well. States all across the nation, state VR agencies are submitting stories that show the impact the public VR program had on individuals in achieving their outcomes. So there's also some opportunity for some national stories too.
We also do the student spotlight in APSE too. So students get highlighted too for their efforts.
We're going to turn it over to you. Here is the agenda. And we'll kind of follow this, and if we need to take a break as well, we can do that for folks.
Well, this group knows how I like to talk, so I'm sure she'll have to remind me to give a break, but we'll make sure we do a break. So yeah, I'm gonna go over quite a few things today and talk for quite a bit today, but also want to review some information. So the first thing you'll probably notice is the order of the slides is a little different, excuse me, than the agenda that was sent out. Apologies for that. But we want to make sure I did some adjustments so we can make sure and have plenty of time to cover everything. So starting, we're going to talk about the level of care assessment representative, or LCAR. I'll give a quick update on that. We'll spend quite a bit of time talking about the waiver amendments for the December 31st implementation, the ones that just ended public comment period. Talk about case management, waiver reset, and then if there's questions on the BEADS data that was sent out. So starting with the level of care assessment representative, that did launch July 1st. So we're about 50 days in. That's the statewide vendor Maximus completing nursing facility level of care assessments and determination recommendations and issuing those determinations. As we launch that, and we have talked about this in a previous meeting, they are utilizing the Inter-I home care tool that has been used for a number of years to assess nursing facility level of care. That is continuing to be used for adults, and then for youth, we launched or began using the Inter-I pediatric home care tool. That's 4 to 17 years of age. And then the early years tool. Again, as a reminder, those Inter-I tools are all developed by a collaborative of researchers. They are validated and reliable tools and standardized tools. So those launched also. In fact, the first referral that Maximus received for a level of care assessment was for an early years tool. So those are in flight and being utilized today to assess individuals. Maximus is also doing the annual reassessments for nursing facility level of care for those in waiver services on the health and wellness, traumatic brain injury, and the Indiana Pathways for Aging waivers. One thing I want to highlight is any potential denial of level of care for nursing facility level of care, that denial is reviewed by a state staff. Maximus may do the assessment and recommend a particular outcome, but if that outcome is expected to be a denial, state staff review those, 100% of those. Also want to just note reserve capacity, a couple changes. One that's been in place for a bit now is if an individual is on the health and wellness waiver receiving services and they're found to no longer meet nursing facility level of care, but they meet the ICF-ID level of care required for the family support waiver, there is a reserve capacity on the family support waiver so that that individual can transition to the family support waiver. And we have seen that occur since that reserve capacity has been in place. We also, effective 50 days ago on July 1st, we added a reserve capacity on the health and wellness and the Pathways for Aging waiver for individuals who are residing in assisted living facility, have spent down their resources and become newly Medicaid eligible. Those individuals also will have access to the health and wellness or Pathways waiver if they meet that reserve capacity criteria. All right. Another thing that we launched on July 1st is a waiver consolidation. Just quickly, we took the functionality that supports the health and wellness and TBI waivers out of the existing IT system at that time and moved it into the BEADS portal. That launched again July 1st. The portal is a more cost-effective system for the state and also more efficient for case managers. We continue with enhancements and refinements to stabilize that system. But we did also make that move in an effort to consolidate some of our IT work. Next slide, please. Thank you. Briefly wanted to give an update. Also, this was included in the data we sent out on our wait list for the family support waiver and the health and wellness waiver. As you can see, the waiting lists continue to grow, but I think an important point is to note that we also see the growth in the number of people served on those waivers over time. We are serving
So
more.
I have a quick question about
Yes.
these graphs. So why are they not zeroed on the left side? I mean, this gives the false impression that these are dramatically increasing, when in fact it's really just a tiny increase. I mean, the difference between the lowest number on the left and the highest number on the left is not all that big, especially if you put 0 on the left. So that's practically a flat line, and this is, I believe it's showing an exaggeration of the growth. And I just think that that's for a group like this who's trying to absorb data, I think that should be 0 on the left side, because that is an exaggerated growth curve.
That is the number of people being supported on the family support waiver in June of 24 versus June of 25.
I understand that, but I'm saying when you look at the growth, I mean, if you really look at that with 0 at the bottom instead of 23,000 at the bottom or whatever, is that what I'm saying? Is it 23,000 on the bottom?
23,200. However, we're not starting at 0 though, Jim.
No, I'm just saying.
We're serving people.
Oh, I understand that.
Right.
But in terms of a graph, when you're representing numbers and your bottom number, I mean, that looks like that is a dramatic increase. I mean, the curve goes up, and that's what people see. I think that's an exaggerated representation.
So you think serving over that period of time, an additional 1,000 people is not significant?
No, I think it's significant. I think that the curve makes it look like it's dramatic.
And you
There's a
don't think
difference between-
serving
there's a
over
difference between
1,000
an increase
additional
and a
people
dramatic.
in a year is not dramatic?
I mean, I think that represents it as a very, very dramatic curve upward. And that is by design from this graph, and it would serve us well to see that with a 0 on the left side. And then you'll see that line practically flatten out. It looks like we're talking about everything's going up, 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 and it's really just a little bit up. And I think it's important when you're representing things graphically to represent them as accurately as possible, especially for a group that has a wide variety of experience.
Jim, thank you, and I appreciate the feedback. And there is no attempt to be inaccurate in what we're presenting.
Okay, I believe that. I'm just saying.
Because the
seems to
numbers
me like
are
it is-
pretty clear that we started with over 23,600 people in June of 24. And in June of 25, we had over 24,400 people. So I don't think there's inaccuracies there, but I hear what you're saying on, is there a better way or another way to demonstrate the actual growth over that period of time besides a graph? I think is what I'm.
Are there wait lists for the other the other waiver? Sorry,
Good
I didn't see them in
question.
the.
No, we're gonna talk about that,
Okay,
because
and
that's
then-
one of the things. I
Yeah,
was
and then
gonna
maybe
talk-
a follow-up to that.
Yeah.
CIH, I believe there's not a wait
There
list
is
for
not
that
a
either.
wait list for that.
I'm
Correct.
curious, and I mean, I've heard this, we're sitting in this moment in time, as we always are, of extremely constricted, and even more so today, resources. Do you think that having no wait list for the CIH is misrepresenting the need and demand of more intensive services in the state? I mean, so let me rephrase that. As a policymaker looking at our wait list data, and they don't see CIH with a wait list, it suggests that a demand doesn't exist that maybe does exist. And I wonder if we're misrepresenting. I don't mean this in any kind of negative. I'm not. This isn't a blame, or it's not even a targeted thing about you. I do wonder though, kind of strategically, right? I don't think it's intentional. I do wonder if there's a strategic misstep here by not having a wait list there, that we're misrepresenting the actual need of people who might qualify for CIH, but do not have, but there isn't a wait list there. So they get kind of deferred to some other service delivery model when they in fact need CIH level services. So I say that because I think as a policymaker right now, looking at our lack of wait lists on CIH, it suggests that there's kind of a split of two things. One is, I guess there's three. One, there's an off ramp when there's an emergency application that we can put them into CIH. There's institutional level of care or institutionalized type care like ICF, because there is no wait list or no service demand. So maybe it's people are looking to ICF, or the alternative is FSW. And I do wonder if we're just doing a disservice for our advocacy efforts here in this state by not having a wait list there. And I say that really, this isn't a charge at any of you. It's been the practice for the decade I've been here, and I just wonder if
I might agree. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think, and we'll speak to this, that's part of the reasoning for waiver reset. Right?
Yeah.
Because the way the system is designed now, and this isn't to defer or deflect. This was based on stakeholder feedback at a time when we did have, remember, the 15,000 people on a waiting list. So it showed the need,
Right.
but we were only serving 9,000 people and people waited 10, 15 years. I think now, number one, to your point, correct me if I'm wrong, people that know much more than me on this. Because of the way the CIH is structured as a needs-based emergency placement, we cannot have a waiting list. So it's, those 4 criteria, and it's, based on that assessment. So I can't say, oh, yeah, you meet this A&E or caregiver over 80, but we have to put you on a wait list. So that's technically why there cannot be, but I do hear what you're stating. I think waiver reset is meant to address that, because we see there are folks that, and I don't want this to be taken out of context, so I'm gonna be very careful in what I say, may not need the level of what we now perceive CIH to be, may need more than what FSW offers.
right.
And there are some that don't need the full amount of FSW.
Right.
So I think reset is meant to address that.
Yeah.
And that's the desired outcome.
I would agree, and I think that's great feedback as we
Yes.
think about waiver reset.
and I do think, and I know that there's some other data here, but I saw in CIH, some of the CIH data, people left the CIH to go to ICF. And I think that's the alternative for that the higher level of support that people are going. And I say that because I think as a community that prioritizes community-based services, self-determination, all the values and the morality kind of bound in there, I do question if we end up forcing families, individuals into a decision, a really hard pinch of FSW, not enough support, or non-community-based supports, ICF type services. So I say that because I think there is a moment now where seems to be, I don't think it's in this room, but I think even hearing some leadership within FSSW about the idea of institutionalized care is potentially everything's on the table. And I will tell you that is troubling to hear. And it makes me alarmed when we don't have the data to actually back it up. So there is a level of, I think there's an urgency if that's the FSW leadership saying everything's on the table related to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. That's concerning. So I'll pause there. I'll stop there and get off the soapbox, but I just wanted to get that out there.
Thanks.
Thank you. And I appreciate the waiver reset. I think you're right, 100%.
There's some great opportunities there.
Absolutely.
I would agree.
And you do not need trust me. Truly.
Leslie, I see that your hand's up real quick. Go ahead.
Now unmuted. Mute.
Yes, my hand's up. I wanted to follow up a little bit on that. I understand 100% why we don't have a statistic for a wait list for CIH because of the needs-based emergency placement status of it. But I want to make sure I'm correct in saying that our quarterly reports typically talk about how many people are waiting for review and different statistics like that. Do we have a way of displaying how long a review period is for CIH and kind of giving estimates about that? I know it's not necessarily a wait list, but there's still a wait for review and things like that. So I wanted to see if there's a way of representing that more.
Yeah, did
I don't want to run over you. You
Okay.
guys.
No, I appreciate that, Lexi. We have, and I think it was shown in the data, a really significant increase in the number of CIH applications we're seeing. It's never been a small number, really. And we take great care in making sure we're doing comprehensive reviews of those, but I appreciate your feedback on that. And it does sometimes take a bit to get those reviews done. I will note, though, when there are situations that are urgent, we have a process for those to be escalated internally, whether that's someone in our district saying, hey, we submitted this, but the situation's changed. The individual's got these additional risks. Can you take a look at this? We do have those processes in place.
Might I also clarify too, I think more for the general public, most individuals, I think, on the council are aware of this, but within CIH, there are four categories. So I think, Lexi, and I don't want to make assumptions, but I believe you're likely referring to the one category, which is health and safety. That is that category that has to be reviewed internally and ultimately by the person that's seated in the director's position, which right now is me. But the three other categories, those are, very quick generally. We just have to verify that the requirements are met, or, death of a primary caregiver over 80, and then abuse, neglect, and exploitation. And I would just again stress, there is a process for the other health and safety. Our service coordinators will reach out. I've had case managers elevate, ombudsman, external folks say, hey, this needs to be looked at today. And we'll push that through, and that will get to me. I think it'll, go through Holly and the team, and they review, and it's to me, it's pretty quick. That's occurred on a weekend.
Yeah.
So.
Can I ask a parking lot question, because I don't think we have the time to address it today, but just jumping off of what Derek has shared, and mentioning folks choosing ICF level of care when they can't access a waiver or a CIH waiver. I know you all present in the quarterly fiscal meeting the cost of supporting folks in an ICF group home. Is it possible to do a comparison for these meetings of what the cost is of supporting individuals on a waiver versus supporting them in a group home, so that we have a good idea?
I've included some of that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
you. And
Yeah.
the other, I know quality metrics has been a topic of conversation as well, at different meetings. Starting to discuss what are some of the quality of life outcomes when we talk about community living. We've talked about, we get a really great employment update. I think those are all things that contribute to good community life. But I think it would be helpful for us to kind of hear what you all identify as quality right now, versus what the community sees as quality.
Thank you. Back to the wait list, I do want to address your question about the TBI waiver. So today, an announcement will go out that we will be initiating a wait list for the TBI waiver. The TBI waiver has 200 slots. It's a very small waiver compared to our other waivers. And we have now between active participants on the TBI waiver and people that are in the pipeline, right? They may still be working on Medicaid eligibility, for example, but they're in the pipeline. All those slots are assigned. That waiver year for the TBI waiver is January 1 to December 31st. So that will be going out today.
Your estimate on the size of that wait list now?
Oh, a
It-
couple
it-
people. I mean, it's very small.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's.
yeah,
starting-
it's very small. It's a small waiver and it's a small number of people that
Yeah.
qualify for that.
Yeah.
For the TBI waiver, people can potentially qualify for that with either nursing facility level of care or ICFID level of care,
Gotcha.
either one.
Quick question. So, January 1, do you anticipate any of the slots opening up from the waiver year?
It will depend on the people moving off.
So,
If that makes
I don't
sense.
know if you were aware of any that were currently open, because I know you can't open them until January.
Not right now. Not aware of any that are currently open, but people have that, the way it's looked at today, if someone's occupied that slot during that waiver year, it's theirs through that waiver year.
Right, that's why
So,
I asked.
yeah, okay. All right, next slide, please.
Oh, wait, we have a question, I'm sorry.
Oh, we did, I'm sorry.
Well, please, text me.
Oh, okay.
Why did individuals leave CIH waiver to go to OM?
I wouldn't,
That's-
when you talked about people leaving CIH to go to an ICF, that would depend on the individual. It may be that they were in need of a situation that offered more structure.
Yeah.
Not that structure can't be offered in a CIH setting, but it is different than the structure offered in an ICF. So it could be that, but it would be based on the individual and their situation.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
But also it's available. And with,
Yes.
and if you don't have abuse, neglect, caregiver issues,
Oh.
or health safety, it's a service. That's more than the FSW. I mean, I think realistically.
You were talking about they were on CIA
And left to an
No,
ICF.
right, well, or seeking CIH and
Okay.
wait, and I think the question, I think that's a real challenge that families have right now is they're in this moment of the CIH providing them the wealth of, or the service mass, the large, much larger than FSW service supports. And then the need of today. And that, you know, a caregiver who's 60 years old has a 20-year waiting time for their child to get on the CIH. Where maybe getting them into a different level of care or the ICF type care might be an alternative where they can actually get it. So I think that's a tough one. And I will say, and I think Melissa and I were just pointing out the cost data. The costs of these two services right now on average are not of SGL, for example, and are pretty similar. So I think that's a tough. So anyway, I see a smirk.
So really quick,
Not a smirk.
Yes, a smirk isn't the right.
I would just say when we look at ICF ID cost data, I would remind everyone at the top of that range is the comprehensive rehabilitation medical needs facility.
Yeah.
It's high cost.
Which is extremely high cost for about, but it's very small number.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That
it's
is
poking.
factored in when we
cost,
look at
yes.
cost neutrality, but if.
Yeah, thank you.
so I just want to go back. Could you please go back one slide? I am going to belabor the point. I don't always do so, but I am going to belabor it here. On the right side, those are the wait lists and they're all zeroed out on the left. So it looks like it's a really gradual graph. On the left side, they're not zeroed out. So it looks like a dramatic increase. Just look at the family supports waiver wait list. It's increased 2,000. There hasn't been anywhere near 2,000 added to the active, but it actually looks like a steeper curve. And so when you're representing things in a graphical fashion, that's
We could move it to
Okay.
the bar chart. We honestly did this because we got complaints that people couldn't read the chart.
Okay.
It was not an intent to misrepresent or present any kind of message other than the truth. So I think we'll take note and we can standardize and use the bar chart.
okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Director Mitchell.
One other thing, I just had a question. As we're looking at ICF placement and waiver, I know that if you're in ICF placement currently, you can't work or make income. Is there any kind of a change to that that's coming down the pipeline that would allow people to have competitive community employment in an ICF setting?
So just for a point of clarification, Jess, help me keep time, please.
You're good.
Is individuals in ICFs, right, can work technically. They just don't get to keep their income, which is, I hear you, but I want to clarify for everyone listening that they can work, they just don't get to keep all of their wages. In fact, they get to keep a small part of that. Those are Medicaid rules. We are aware of that. And I think, again, it's an opportunity for us in waiver reset to see if there's any opportunities there to take a look at that. But right now, there is nothing that I am aware of where we can get that Medicaid rule changed. But it's a thing, right?
Yeah, I know it affects choice too, so I just want to see if that was there.
Yeah. People can work, but people probably aren't going to make that choice, right? All right. So this is just some information that we shared at the quarterly financial review. We, not me. I was gone, and Kelly and Kathy filled in for me, so thank you to them for that. But this is just the numbers, right? I do want to note for this group, the number of beads applications for state fiscal year 25 was 8,000. And I want to be sure and clarify, those are applications for individuals seeking services for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. That is not inclusive of people coming into the system applying for services through the aging and the ADRC, or the Area Agency on Aging and Disability Resource Center, which is where those individuals come through. So significant number of people applying for services. Here's the numbers at in Q2 of 2025. Again, we pulled this from the QFR, so it's a little dated, but just the numbers of people on the wait list at that time for the FS and the health and wellness, the enrollment across all waivers, and then the new enrollments in Q2 of 2025. New enrollments being defined as people that have new active initial plans, if that makes sense. And then we have, let's see the next slide. Sorry, I missed that. That was in the data we sent out. Just highlighting the caseloads for bead service coordinators in Q2 of 2025, and then the number of invitations to the various waivers in Q2 of 2025. Again, I think this was included in the data we sent out, so. Okay.
Holly, before you start with the amendments, can I go back a little bit and ask about the LCAR? So for individuals and families that maybe their case manager has told them your review is getting ready to come up and they haven't heard from Maximus, is there guidance or a place to look for families about what the next steps should be, what their case manager should be doing, what happens if you don't hear from them within that time?
The Maximus will reach out to individuals up to 90 days before their level of care is due, their reassessment is due. They can certainly talk to their case manager. They should not have to reach out to Maximus to get that scheduled. Maximus will reach out to them using contact information that's in our system. They will reach out to them and then get that scheduled. If you have a situation where a person has not been contacted and their level of care is due in 2 weeks, let's say, send that to me.
I'll talk to you because I'm one of those people.
Okay, all right, very good. And you connect with me and we'll see what's going on there and get that scheduled. Individuals will not, the system is designed and has been for years that even when case managers were doing those levels of care, if for some reason that level of care is not done by that annual date, the services continue. The system allows what's called an extension of the plan so that that service continues, those services continue, and the individual is not in any way penalized if prior to July 1, a case manager wasn't timely in completing level of care. Or if a family had some sort of a family crisis, grandpa was in the hospital, mom was with grandpa, you know, that kind of thing. They're not penalized for that. And that remains true with the onset of LCAR.
Awesome. And then some families, some families.
Case management companies were allowed to reach out to Maximus. We did in the beginning, and I think we were told not to now.
There should not be a reason for case managers to call Maximus and say this level of care is due.
Okay.
If we're not seeing, if a case manager is concerned about someone's level of care, I would say you can reach out to us and then we will address that.
And then some families are reporting that they're getting letters from Maximus that they've already been on the waiver, but they're getting a letter stating that they've been placed on the wait list. How should they address those letters?
If I think there is an issue that we are aware of where occasionally something like that is happening, right? Just let us know. And if they give it to you, you want to send it to us, we'll take care of that. I do want to note we're 50 days in from a pretty big go live, right? So there's some bumps. But at the end of the day, what we're making sure of, and I'll just talk through that extension kind of process, is services will remain intact. If families get some sort of mailing they don't understand and they reach out to you, please let us know. And then we'll work through that issue.
Thank you.
With Maximus. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, next slide. We will start going through the waiver amendments that just closed on public comment. These are waiver amendments with a planned implementation date of December 31st. And our intent is to submit those to our federal partners at CMS in early September. Again, those were out for public comment until I believe it was the 9th. Thank you. I was on vacation at that time and my dates are all skewed. But I do want to note public comment. We have an avenue for public comment to be made during that public comment period. This advisory council, when we have discussions here, and we may have talked about this last time, that's not public comment. So I want to make sure that that's clear, that public comment's closed now. And anything we talk about today would not be considered public comment.
To be clear though, Holly, that doesn't mean that it wouldn't possibly be considered prior to submission, right? I mean, what we talk about here could still be, because it's not public comment, you might still make some changes if something was pointed out at this meeting, correct?
It's possible, but we got a very significant amount of public comment, which is good. That's why we do it. But we'll walk through some of that and we'll talk a little bit about the public comment, but I'm going to walk through the different items that are included in the waiver amendments that we are proposing. I do want to note though, Jim, to your point, we're ingesting all of that public comment right now. And between now and September, early September, when we submit those to CMS, there could be changes, right? As with any set of waiver amendments, when we go out for public comment. So,
so to be clear, the reason that I'm bringing this up is that the last time this advisory council met was prior to the release of the proposed amendments. And
right.
So when we last gave input to you, we did not have the ability to see the actual amendments. And then the amendments were released. And there were some great big surprises in those amendments that we had never had an opportunity to make any kind of comment on. And as you said, this is not public comment. So we should have the opportunity to provide our advice in this advisory council that's outside of public comment. And your previous answer indicated that you might, and that's a little bit of a disappointment to me.
I don't think she's saying that you can't say
Yes.
things about that today.
Right.
What we're trying to say is if you're gonna look at that amendment and try to find your special comment in the summary of public comment to CMS, you probably won't see that because it's not fallen within the public
Within the
comment
official
period. It's not to say that you can't speak to concerns that you may have on those amendments and that we wouldn't continue to consider them because we continue to talk to people every day until leading up to the submission of those amendments. I don't want to make it appear as though we're saying no one can speak today about those amendments. I think what we're trying to say is we offered a public comment period and we are in the process of synthesizing and reviewing and considering everything that has been submitted to us.
And as Holly pointed out, this is not part of that public comment, so that we can make those.
You can make
Thank you.
whatever comments you would like to make
Yes.
because you are an advise and assist capacity as an advisory member.
All right. So walking through some of these, first is aligning the money follows the person reserve capacity. I have in parentheses here the various waivers this impacts. I do want to note that we have CMS approval on our MFP budget and are unpausing that enrollment this month. So in fact, we anticipate in the coming days a couple people, new people enrolling in MFP. So we're excited about that. We are unifying the definition of structured family caregiving per CMS direction across all three of the BEADS waivers and the pathways for aging waiver. I mentioned this last time, we are proposing changes to the definition of residential habilitation on the TBI waivers so that those individuals can share staffing, which has not been allowed in the past, and it opens up some opportunities for those individuals in terms of residential services. We're moving to one category of adult day service providers and then adding the home and community support professional registry and training that was a result of legislation. And just so everyone's aware, that home and community support professional is what we used to refer to as a direct support professional. So we've added one more acronym for all of us. Anyway, just want to note some of these changes. I'm going to walk through some more, but I do want to, just from a broader perspective, talk a little bit about our journey with waiver reset. And I want to note, you know, we have many years ago, I actually think it was 5 or 6 years ago, it may be more now, where we made the decision as a division to adopt the life course framework philosophy, right? And I think you guys are, most of you are familiar with that, but it is really a framework about being person-centered and about integrated supports and inclusion at the very heart of that. And as we look at our waivers, we recognize that inclusion and ensuring that our services are a part of people's lives, but not the totality of their connections, is something that we want to continue to emphasize. So just know I'll be talking about that throughout this process. And
Holly,
oh, move me to the next
a
one.
question about the last slide. For the adult day services, does that include CIH and FSW? I know it's a small amount of people that use adult day services, but
This is the adult day service on the health and wellness. And
okay,
PBI
so that's
waivers.
not going to be unified.
No.
Okay.
This is about some categories of providers that were on the age and disabled waiver that carried over that we are adjusting because all the providers were in one category.
I just wondered if that was opening up some choices.
Yeah, it is. It is a categories of a provider, not the level of service, if that makes sense.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Next slide. We are combining the home modification assessment services per CMS direction. We talked about that last time. Updating emergency placement priorities on the CIH as a result of legislation. Aligning of quality improvement system performance measures. Some revisions to service definitions. That is an updates to service definitions. A couple of those things I want to highlight for this group is some modifications, proposed modifications to documentation standards for attendant care and PAC. So attendant care is a quarter-hour unit service. PAC is an attendant care today requires 1 note a day. PAC is an hourly service and today requires 1 note a shift. So we are aligning those and requiring in the documentation an hourly note so that there is a clear description of what's occurring during the service, during that service provision. We're also updating to reflect dollar amounts for certain services and updating the description of selection of entrance to the waivers that have wait lists.
Holly,
Yes.
question. On the quality improvement system performance measures, those are different than the work that the state is going to be undertaking or currently undertaking on the quality metrics as part of the access rule, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
But there is, there is some
There's some
connection. But
crossover.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
The next slide is about some services that we are fortunate to be able to add. And I do want to emphasize we are adding.
Just a second.
Oh.
Lexi, did you have a question about the previous slide?
Oh, sorry.
I wanted to go back to selection of interest. Is that the same as like how VR does order of selection sometimes?
No, it is, Lexi, that's a great question. And that's but it is really just updating some language to reflect how individuals move off the wait list into services, if that makes sense. It's not about an order of selection. It's about the wait lists on the waivers and how those individuals come off. First come, first serve, for example.
And then like the priority slots and stuff.
For
right.
the priority slots on the, like the family support waiver and the health and wellness waiver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Does that qualify as selection of interest?
It doesn't change who qualifies to come, through into services, but it clarifies the wait list and how people move off the wait list into services. It's just a language cleanup. It is not a substantive kind of change. Does that
Gotcha.
help?
Thank you. Yes,
Okay.
that helps a lot. Thank you for clarifying.
Employment related proposed changes. So, I think Teresa even mentioned kind of the space we're in today with resources, right? And needing to work within the resources we have available. I think it's important to note that we are adding some services, specifically benefits counseling, and that's across all 4 waivers that these administers, which is something completely new for FS and CIH, health and wellness and TBI. So we're really excited about that. We're also, for the first time, able to add an employment service, extended services to the health and wellness waiver. There are no employment services on that waiver today. So this provides some opportunities for individuals to utilize employment services on health and wellness. So very excited about that. And then updating the supported employment definition on the TBI waiver. That waiver has had that service, but updating that definition to to match the extended services definition on our other waivers. The discontinuing enrollment in facility-based pre-vocational services for the FS and CIH, that is part of our overall employment transformation plan. That is not anything new. That is something that we have communicated with and have planned to pursue for a number of years now. So,
And Holly, just a point of clarification. I think I know the answer, but I just want to make sure. just because there was a change at the federal level on 14C certificate issuance, that does not change anything that the state is doing regarding pre-voc, facility-based pre-voc, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Katie. All right.
Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, so want to go through some of the allowances and service limits that are contained in these amendments. Gonna start with attendant care. So when we last met, before public comment, we talked about up to 40 hours per week per paid family caregiver is provided to the participant based on the assessed need of the participant. So for attendant care, when we met last time, we talked about 40 hours a week per participant by a paid family caregiver. We heard you, and that was modified before it went out for public comment and changed to up to 40 hours per week per paid family caregiver. Okay, so I wanted to highlight that because we heard you. So we made that change before it even went out for public comment. That is still the level of service still depends on the needs of the individual, right? But if the individual is determined to need 50 hours a week of attendant care, and there's 2 family members that meet the qualifications, and they want to provide 40 hours and 10 hours by another family member, that would be allowable under the proposed change.
That's great.
Also with attendant care, and we have talked about this a number of times, we are proposing to allow up to 40 hours a week of attendant care be provided by an LRI, legally responsible individual, parent of a minor participant, or spouse of a participant, per member. Okay, so per participant, where the extraordinary care definition is met. And we'll talk about the extraordinary care definition in the next slide. So that's what we are proposing there. We are proposing the same for PAC in terms of the paid family caregivers and then the legally responsible individuals being able to provide up to 40 hours per week per member when extraordinary care is the needs of the participant meet the definition of extraordinary care. And then the residential having support on the TBI waiver, we are proposing to add up to 40 hours a week per paid family caregiver based on the need of the participant. That is what is in the CIH today for res hab. So it's the same thing. All right. So back to the extraordinary care. So the extraordinary care, again, is a characteristic of the needs of the participant or the individual in services. We have are proposing, there's 2 different types of services.
Yeah, all right, Holly, I'm gonna turn it over to you to keep plugging away through the agenda.
Okay.
With the continued amendments.
Do we want to shut the door?
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll get that.
Probably yelling.
All right, jumping back in, want to talk, continue some conversation around the allowances and service limits in the set of amendments that we will be submitting in early September. So as we've talked about in the last meeting, we have proposed limitations on the amount of music therapy and rec therapy to 6 hours per month for each. Those proposed limits, I do want to note a couple things. First is that these are not the only services in the waivers that have limits, and these are proposed limits, of course. It is not, states are allowed to put limits, service limitations in place on waivers. Today, we've got a service limit on community transition funds, service limit on integrated healthcare coordination, service limits around vehicle mod, home mod, specialized medical equipment supplies. So that is perfectly allowable. And I, based on some of the public comment we have received, I just wanted to make sure that that's clear, that states can service limits.
Okay, so I have a comment on this.
Uh-huh.
And I'll try not to get too emotional or too loud. But do you ever think of the rural people that are on the waivers? 6 hours a month, you might as well just drop the whole thing. They're not gonna be able to go anywhere. There's no, I'll give you an example. My son lives in a rural area. Monticello, there's nothing that you can do in there. Lafayette, 40 minutes away, you have your bowling, you have your golf, you have all the activities. Delphi, 15 minutes away, there's nothing there. 6 hours a month, there's no way a play therapist could come, get my son, go to Lafayette, 40-minute travel, start an activity, then, oh, sorry, we got to stop because we got to get back. We don't have 6 hours a month. I maybe have an hour, hour and a half to see him. 6 hours a month. She'll come 3 hours a week to do with Nathan. Now, 6 hours a month, how's she even going to see him one time? You're not even thinking about, you talk about person-centered and inclusion. You just wipe that out of that. What happened to the case managers? You get a certain amount of money per year. They set a budget. So why are you going to restrict them then when they're going to set that budget for the music and rec therapy? It's in the budget, it fits. And that person is getting inclusion, they're getting person-centered activity. These rural people will not be able to do anything. They'll have to sit at home. And yes, I still take him out. There's extra things, but I work nights. Single parent, full time. He doesn't get to go out very often. He used to work. Then they closed down the sheltered work center. He got depressed over that. Now you're going to lose his music therapy and recreation. He's going to get depressed again because he can't go out and do things. He looks forward in that rec person. That rec person only, besides doing recreational thing, she talks to him. He opens up to her. He talks more to her when we know there's an issue then. If mom's having a hard time with him because he's not listening to his chores, she can get him to do, and he'll come back and he'll do things because he wants to see her next week. He wants those that 6 hours a month is not reasonable. You're not thinking of these rural people. And you say, person-centered inclusion, you just wipe that out, that waiver. Because there's not much there to offer for those rural people.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. I do. And we have received a lot of feedback on the rec therapy changes. So I do want to spend some time talking through that. I want to, with the service limits proposed, I do want to note that we recognize the value in rec therapy and music therapy. If we didn't, they wouldn't be waiver services, right? So we recognize those are therapeutic services that individuals can benefit from. First and foremost, I recognize as well that rural versus urban does make for some difference. And we're going to talk a little bit about that because I think what we have seen is a lot of recreational therapy time is spent transporting people. We've also seen there is a perception that rec therapy is the only way for individuals to engage in their community in recreational activities or engage in their community at all. And that is not how HCBS services are designed. Rec therapy is not the only service that can take an individual into their community to participate in recreational activities or to just access their community. There are other services that can also do that. So we'll talk a little bit about what those services are. But as an example, if the person is on the CIH waiver, because rec therapy is available on the CIH and FSW, just those two waivers. If a person has the CIH waiver, residential hab can provide community access, recreational activities, and in fact does provide that. That is available through the residential hab and support service, as well as a day hab service could provide that as well. Now, is it therapeutic? Maybe that's a little different, but accessing the community, rec therapy is not the only way that people should access their community or engage in recreational activities. Okay. PAC is another example. Individuals can utilize PAC to engage in their community. That's available on the FSW. So it's become very clear through the public comment period that that is not fully understood by our system. That there are multiple waiver services that should be supporting community engagement, supporting people and going into their community, building connections in their community, and accessing all those things that people not receiving waiver services accesses, whether that's a local high school football game, right? Or a free concert in the park, right? That does not have to be provided by a recreational therapist. It could be if it's therapeutic and there's therapeutic outcomes from that service, but it doesn't have to be. If it's just going to that event, right? A PAC staff could do that. A residential hab staff could do that. A day hab provider.
But the problem is you don't have the staffing. I'm forced as of October 5th, I have to go part-time because there's no staffing for my son. There hasn't been staffing for over 2 years. So, I understand, these, and they're trying. I'm not saying these nursing agencies aren't trying. It's just not out there, especially in the rural area. There's nobody.
And I hear you on that as well. I do. But I will say our services have requirements on definitions, and accessing rec therapy should be based on the needs for that therapeutic service.
Correct. But you're limiting it to 6 hours.
It isn't meant to replace or to fill the need of another service such as PAC or residential hab or behavior support or any other service, right? It is rec therapy, like all therapies, are therapeutic and have therapeutic outcomes that should be part of that service.
And isn't that what the case managers are looking at when they're assigning how many hours the case manager can have on that contract per person?
Case managers shouldn't decide how many hours of any service.
But they go by what amount you have on your contract, correct?
No. And in
So then,
fact,
like if Nathan has a budget and they say, okay, therapeutically he needs.
so yeah, let me just jump in real quickly. I don't want to interrupt you, but I do want to jump in and say, we'll use the FSW as an example because it's a capped waiver, right? There's a finite amount of money an individual has, right? To address their needs.
Correct.
That should not mean that when a person is entering services or their annual, that a case manager or any member of the team sits down and says, okay, you have $26,842, whatever it is, dollars available. How do you want to spend it? That's not the way services should work. It is about, you have a waiver. Let's talk about your needs.
Correct.
What are your needs? And then what services will meet those needs?
Correct.
Waiver services, community services, informal support, informal, I talk with my hands, informal support, natural supports, how can we address your needs? Because waivers will not meet all needs,
right?
Particularly the FSW, right? It's capped. So, that's how that conversation should be. It is not a situation where You know, we're talking about being person-centered and we're sitting down and saying, you have this amount of money. How are we going to use that? It should be a discussion about needs. And if there is not a need for a therapeutic service, then what is the need?
Right.
Being said, if we're looking at therapeutic service, I know that for rec therapy and music therapy, movement and music are really the language for people who don't speak. And maybe that's more useful than behavior management. Is there any way that we could possibly have an amount and then that we could finagle whatever would be more useful for that individual? Because not a lot of non-speaking people respond as well to behavior as they do to those two.
Did you want to say, I cut you off, Lynn. Did you want to say something? Okay. You're not.
doing a good job.
Leslie and Lisa, I see you, or just, so.
I think one of the concerns that I really through public comment and speaking to other individuals that is also elevated, and I think this is on our end to do a better job with the service definition and some guidance. To the point that Holly's been making, the service is meant to be therapeutic, and inclusive in that is engaging with other individuals in that person's life to assist them in better supporting and not being the only avenue. So I think, you know, there's some concern around that on our end. I think we're also acknowledging, you know, Derek, you've spoken to it and others have, the environment in that we are in. We really are trying to preserve choice. And quite frankly, Indiana offers a broad array of services on our waivers. Compared to other states, a significantly broad array of services, not just the two that we're referencing now. We stand alone offering recreational therapy as a waiver service. And I think we are one of only 4 states now. We used to be the only state that offers music therapy as part of home and community-based waivers. So I do want to put forward that this is effort on our part to continue to hear from you, preserve that choice and provide options, but also recognizing, I think Holly, you're doing an amazing job in trying to walk through all this, that it is the therapeutic nature. That is why it's standalone and isolated and why we are referencing leveraging other services. So thank you for letting me.
Thank you.
Lexi, I'm gonna go ahead and, you wanna go ahead and come off mute?
Okay, yeah, thank you. So you mentioned just kind of more specifying the service definition and adding more guidance. The way I think of this when I process this, and this is for music therapy, rec therapy, behavior management, whatever like therapeutic services we're talking about adding limits to, I do feel like that takes away from person-centeredness. And I feel like instead of taking away from the person-centeredness and restricting the amount that can be used when we have, you know, a budget that we, you know, can use, I feel like there should be instead a focus on education, guidance, and monitoring to ensure that the services are being used as they're specified within their service definition, instead of just telling people, oh, you can only have so much. Because if someone does need it for the therapeutic services, which, you know, PAC doesn't necessarily provide, or ResHab or whatever, you know, DayHab doesn't provide, I feel like as long as the notes that the therapist or the case manager, whoever is taking, shows that there is a need. And I feel like if the families and especially the individual are educated on what the service definition, the fee, because we do know that music therapy and rec therapy and BMAN are hefty costs within that budget. I think as long as there is such a large education, guidance, and monitoring piece to it, there shouldn't have to be caps. And I feel like we should kind of, unless this has already been tried, because I could be wrong, but I feel like that's something we should be trying first before we're just like, nope, you only get 6 hours, 12 hours, whatever.
Thanks, Lexi. I think that's good feedback. And as Kelly mentioned, we recognize that there's things we need to do to better clarify what that service is intended to do. In doing so would better support individuals and families, but also those rec therapists providing the service, right? People need to know what to expect and what does and doesn't meet the requirements. And to your point about monitoring, you are correct. We need to utilize case management to better ensure that when those services are going on plans, that there is a good understanding of the intent of the service and the service definition, and that there is some ongoing monitoring of those services to ensure essentially compliance with the service definition. So I would agree with you.
Lisa, sorry, I can't keep track of it. Lisa, do you want to go ahead and then Kim?
Okay, thank you. First, I want to say that I'm very appreciative of what Indiana does have put out. When I look at other states, what we do, that is very helpful. I agree also with the educational part of helping individuals and families and providers understand what therapeutic means compared to some other type of service. I would also say the more that we can continue to provide robust training and support for those direct service providers, which I realize is a different term now.
We know what you mean, Lisa. You're
Thank
good.
you. I'll probably forever say it, so forgive me. Through PAC and rehabilitation services, because so many times families will get an agency, but then there's no, even in the city, there's no one that will really come out and do any of the PAC services or rehabilitation services. Or if they are, those individuals are not really wanting to do much engaging. And even if they're allowed to take an individual in the community, it seems like as the individual becomes older, maybe there are some more needs for supports surrounding behavior or communication. It appears that the number of individuals that are that direct support person that are really willing to engage the way a rec therapist or music therapist is dwindles. So I think that in theory, yes, so to speak, you have an agency, the agency says beforehand, yes, we can provide this. But where I'm seeing the disconnect from many families is, okay, now we're signed up with this agency. Maybe we even have a couple of choices for folks, but it doesn't really pan out to the services, the service description, sometimes because of concern of that provider and how to interact. So I think continued tools for that direct service provider about communication and engagement, and individual determination of what this individual wants to do in the community. Because I do think that that is part of where these two services are being utilized, because they are more therapeutic. The individuals are more used to engaging in a perhaps more focused way. And then, of course, yes, those that are in a rural area have particular issues. Absolutely. But I just wanted, and I realize I'm, sharing something very well known, but in working to ensure that what families think they're getting in the waiver, there's actually the education for those direct service providers to know how to carry those services out, I think is still always kind of the root, because if you get those services, it is much easier to use your natural supports for some of the other periods of time.
Sure. Yep. Thank you.
Good points.
I have kind of a question. It was pointed out about these things being more people-centered, person-centered, which, I've seen in different family forums online where people have been upset about this, and, I'm curious, and I think they are too, why the state wants to, limit, instead of it being a part of their plan and deciding what's best. I've seen speculation that you're trying to help more people receive services, so you would spread it, there's just limited service, and so you want to spread it out over more people. I don't know, there's been speculation, but I'm curious why you would make this change.
No, I think that's a good question and a fair question, right? So, there's more than a couple reasons, but, just to start, again, we have, I think the space we're in now, there's a certain amount of services, or a certain amount of resources available, right? And we saw previously in some of the data, we continue to serve more people, right? And the resources don't necessarily grow as we serve more people, the available resources, okay? So we always want to serve as many people as we can, right? So that's part of it. I think we also, as we think about waiver reset, and as we think about where we are today, especially where we are today, sustainability is a reality, right? If we have the available resources we have, then how can we continue to support as many people as possible with those resources? So I don't know if that's helpful.
Can I
Yes,
say
please.
that, because it
Yes.
is important to know, and it is kind of multi-pronged, and Kathy
Yes.
Robinson may want to chime in on this answer as well. I think we were seeing multiple things. I would say it wasn't the driving factor, but one of the factors is access, and I personally, we all know, review CIH applications, right? We get a large number of those. That's where I really get kind of insight into what's happening in the weeds. And just this week, as I was going through, there were multiple. I'm on the waiting list for a rec therapist. I'm on the waiting list for a music therapist. So there's that issue, but I will not say that was the driving factor, the only driving factor. I also think this is not about the quality of the service that is rendered. I do not want that taken in any way, but I think we have seen in a lot of instances, and we're owning this, a lack of that assessment that indicates the therapeutic need for that service, which leads me back to, we need to do a better job around service definition, what's included in the rate and what isn't. I've actually looked at some other states. I'm like, wow, they did a really nice job of explaining this rate's inclusive of. We need to do a better job of that. And I will speak to, I think we all know, I walked in the provider world for 30 some odd years. I've been here for 4 years. We know there are issues with having enough staff and interest level. And as we move toward waiver reset, which now is, wow, we're like year and a half, 2 years. I mean, it's close. I think we really want a picture of what's going on. So to use a service as it perhaps, or as it isn't intended, often masks a need. Derek, some of what you were referencing about how do we know what the need is. From this public comment, I will tell you, it has buoyed a sense that I have that we need to look at something in between what I think, I hate to say DSP, but that kind of work that's more, let me help you with this traditional access, something in between that and therapy or therapeutic, that level, kind of skill set. So that's informing us. And so to your point, as we moved there, how do we sustain what we're doing, given our current environment, try to fix some of these guidance and service definition issues, and put some boundaries in. And Lexi, I appreciate you, but I'm gonna be very honest, to monitor at that level would be so costly, we'd spend even more money that would take away from resources to serve people. And I that's just a fact. But you know, how do we get to there? And we did try to cause the least harm. And in analyzing the data, about 14% of the folks that are on CIH and FSW receive rec therapy as a part of their plan. And of that number, about it's 62 or 63% are at or below the So we did, and music therapy, I think most everyone
91%
is at or
are
below
at or below
already.
6 hours.
So we did try to take an approach that would cause, and I am not saying there aren't individuals impacted, that would cause the least impact and move us in the direction that I believe we all desire.
I just have one follow comment, and that's my daughter's not getting services center, and that budget supplements those therapies itself. I think for her.
Sure. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I've been processing this a lot just since we started talking about this, and so please bear with me as I try to articulate this. One thing that I think is concerning that I hope we can refocus on is the intent of home and community-based services is to foster and facilitate independence, to increase community inclusion and integration. And I'm concerned when we refer to these services through a therapeutic lens that we are leaning into a medical model of disability without looking at the social model. And seeing some of these services outside of a therapeutic lens, like, yes, we want some outcomes. If somebody is getting recreational therapy or music therapy, we do want to identify an outcome from that. And I think it gets risky if we start leaning into just a therapeutic model of not focusing on the other benefits that people get. And I do worry that it takes us away from the intent and purpose of home and community-based services around focusing, allowing the facilitating the support framework around individuals to remain in their homes and communities and with their families. So I think we have multiple problems going on. We need the community capacity for inclusion, and we need the skill development capacity. We have provider capacity for delivery of those services. We need more folks to be doing the in-between work. I get concerned and my red flags go up when I hear a therapeutic approach to everything. And I
said it, I'm smiling at you because I am in total agreement with you. I think that's why I mentioned and why we have noted that we are the only state that offers the recreational therapy as a standalone service. This to me is one of the parking lot items as we move and we begin these really intense and consistent discussions about waiver reset. I know in looking at some other states, community experience, right? And then
Colorado has a fantastic.
It's not labeled as that. So I don't want to belabor that today, but I think that is what we're trying to say is how do we get there? We're not devaluing what's happening, but the way we're approaching it is, I don't think leading us where we all want to be, so how.
And recognizing the value that these standalone services do add to people's lives. I think the example we heard earlier from another member about how her family member looks forward to meeting their rec therapist. That's not a little thing. People with disabilities have a very small network. I know you all know that. They have less than 5 people in their close proximity network. It's like 2.75 is the number. I'm also concerned knowing that we're not going to see a decrease in the prevalence rate of IDD. That's not going to happen. So I just get concerned when we start talking about utilization rates and putting caps, like there's going to be service gaps. We already know that we're only serving 30%, 25-30% of the population that probably does need services. So I'm hoping that we can use sometime, someplace, either here or elsewhere, to facilitate conversations about how we address these multiple tiered issues. Without taking away from the value of the services that people are providing. We've got a room full of rec therapists here today that shows us how important it is to people and the people who are doing the service. And I think I don't want us to lose sight of that. That's my soapbox today. Just
Thank you for your soapbox. I do want to go back to one thing that you mentioned about people having 5 people, right, in their circle or whatever. I will tell you that that hurts to even hear. I mean, it really does. From my perspective, those home and community-based services should be focusing on building that circle, right? Enlarging it. And we need to do a better job of focusing on that, right? So I just needed to put that out there. And I have all kinds of stories where it has worked fabulously.
It's
with
hard. It's hard,
HCBS.
yeah, and
services.
it's hard to find those stories, right? And I know I've been looking at waiver services in other states too. This is a huge conversation in council networks. There are states that offer self-advocacy as a service as part of their waiver. How awesome would that be? How fantastic to build that into how you support a person. That would be incredible. Yes, 2.75 people as a network around a person, unfortunately, is statistically true. And there is so much strain and pressure on families to find other resources, to make the connections, to navigate multiple systems across systems. The burnout level of caregivers is intense. And it costs more money on the caregiver side, paying for the burnout of caregivers. So there's a holistic approach that I think we should be taking to this. And I hope we can facilitate those. I know time-wise, trust me, that soapbox goes on for a while. But I think just looking holistically at the picture, the big picture, recognizing that we are in a limited, when you say limited resources, I know I'm hearing dollar signs. We have limited funding is what that really is. We have limited people and we have a great need.
Can I take?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
I just wanted to piggyback on that and just say that, in order to kind of set the expectations too, I think it would be useful for all of the therapists to do training with the PAC staff.
Yes.
Or the other staff too,
Absolutely.
because.
Yes.
That would be great.
That's actually part of the expectation.
Yep, absolutely.
So I want to piggyback, there have been some really terrific comments and I don't want to repeat all of them, especially the family members I think are particularly salient. When we look at these cuts, I think about, when we start this meeting, we talk about all people are empowered to live, love, work, learn, play, and pursue their dreams. Empowerment is a very strong word. And when you make cuts, it's the opposite of that. And so I'm going to limit my comment here on trying to be practical, So you have a lot of public comment. I know that this particular issue of the cuts to therapeutic services has generated a lot of public comment. You have a lot of people here in the audience today who are very, very invested in this. It's not just for their livelihoods, it's for the individuals that they provide services to for. I would simply request that you reconsider the extent of the cuts. You know, maybe we're not going to sky's the limit anymore, but increasing the caps, at least incrementally, will make a difference. And I don't know where we are at this point in terms of the cost cut, the benefit, all of that. But you cut these pretty deeply. And I would invite you to reconsider that and to increase them. For all of the reasons stated, and I know I'm not throwing out a number, but I think that you all came up with with several numbers. And I know that you have lots and lots of public comment with many justifications. You've heard some here. Please increase those.
I appreciate that. I do want to highlight that there are less than 5,000 people receiving rec therapy, and 62% of those are utilizing at or below the proposed cap. So I do want to just highlight, it is not this application of limitations is not impacting everyone receiving the service.
It's 38% though. That's a lot of people.
Ask Shannon. 38% of hours, 4,914. Yeah. So do we need to?
Yeah, I do think we need to move on because I know there are things to cover and we can continue to talk, these things in future meetings and I do want to be pragmatic, and this is not in disregard to anything said. But I do need to be honest, and I think the FSSA secretary, has stated as such. We have to rein in Medicaid spend. That is the environment we are in. There are only a couple of options to do that. And one is to try to work within what we have and preserve the choices. The other lever is that rates have to be reduced in order to meet budget. And I think we've heard clearly from providers and families and individuals that the rates are necessary to get the quality of the individuals that they want. So know that we are truly trying to strike a balance. I am not trying to be hurtful or disregard, but I am trying to be very honest as to where we are at this point in time. And
Thank you.
so, yeah, thank you.
Well, based on the data that I have that was provided by DDRS, I've always said it that way anyway. Particular for, and I don't have this for music or rec therapy, but for behavior support, if a cut was made at the 15-hour rate, or if a cut was made at 15 hours per month, averaged over the year, that would represent over 8.2% cut of behavior support. So yeah, we do know that that's part of you can still go to 15 and you get your rate cut, is what I'm trying to say. And I don't know what it is for rec therapy and music therapy. I suspect it's even higher.
You have those for FSW, the religious CIH, those numbers, those percentages.
That was FS and CIH. Yeah, that's both. Okay. Are you making me take another break or can we keep going? Okay. Okay. All right. We've got, okay.
Got it.
Yeah. All right. The next thing I want to talk about, and again, appreciate all the feedback. I really do. This is good conversation that can inform future action. So thank you for that. One of the things that we have proposed as well is implementation of new level of care assessment tools for the ICFID population. That would be people applying for the FS, the CIH, and supervised group living, right? It's the same level of care. So we are intending to roll out, again, tools from that Inter-I suite of tools, specifically the Inter-I early years for those very young children, 0 to 3, the Chime DD. That's another acronym we can all learn. What that means is the Chime stands for Child and Youth Mental Health Developmental Disability. And then the Intellectual Disability. Okay. I mentioned before, I think in a conversation with Melissa, these are very, very comprehensive tools. They are very different than what we use today, right? They're comprehensive in that they cover a lot of areas included in the assessments, in the assessment tools themselves, are not part of eligibility. Okay. It is good information because it supports the team working with the individual on identifying what are those existing needs from a holistic perspective. What are those needs? Where do we need to look to get support to address those needs? As a quick example, every Enter-I tool has an area on environment assessment. Is the home in disrepair? Is there running water? These are just examples, right? That's not part of eligibility for ICFID or nursing facility level of care, but it is valuable information when we are trying to support individuals and families, and when we are trying to connect them, not just provide services, but connect them with what they need in terms of support and services, whether that's formal or informal. So they're very comprehensive tools. We are going to roll those out, or intend to roll those out December 31st. We are not changing the criteria for level of care. That remains as it exists today, but we will be better assessing that level of care. And I know we talked last time, our denial rate today, eligibility denial rate today for ICFID services is very small. While we've got lots more people applying, our eligibility denial rate is very small. It's less than 3%. And some months it's like 99.1%. So, in full transparency, as we do a better job of truly assessing individuals, we may see that percentage change. That is not the intent, but because those tools are so comprehensive and they are based on an individual's age, just want to be transparent that that is something we could see. I have included, because the last time we talked about this, there were some questions and we talked about the tools being proprietary, but I did want to walk through a couple examples of what it looks like when we're assessing people today versus when we will be assessing people with an assessment tool that focuses on where that person is in their life, right? Like what developmental stage. So I think we have talked before about the current tool. We say things like, can the individual verbally communicate basic needs and wants and understand communication from others? How do you know that on a very young child, right? These assessment tools, like the early years tool for the very young children, gives some very good ways to assess what that could look like for a young child. So if the child's 2 months old, do they sigh, coo, gurgle spontaneously, right? That's developmentally appropriate as an assessment. For someone 4 through 17, does the youth express ideas without difficulty? That's just an example, right, of how it might look for a youth. And I would bet that there is not a teenager on earth that can express ideas without difficulty, but that's another topic, isn't it? But then, again, some more specific, more objective questions about the person's functional eligibility. Next slide. Can the person independently feed themselves with adaptive equipment most of the time? What's in red is a current question in our tool. What's in the black font, the lighter 2 bullets, is an example of what might be in a future tool. Does the child cry or refuse new foods if we're talking about a young a young child, right? Derek, you're grinning, you've lived that life, haven't you?
You know that.
You know, does the adult require oversight or cueing when eating, right? It's not just about can the individual feed themselves independently or with adaptive equipment, but do they also need oversight when they're eating or cueing when they're eating a meal or a snack? Can the individual independently prepare several basic foods? So this is the one where the tool we use today, right? We're sitting in a room with someone and we're talking about, can your 5-year-old make a hamburger, right? We've kind of talked about that before. That's not developmentally appropriate. So for a child, it may be focused more on the meal time than the meal preparation, because that's what would be appropriate for a young child. For an older child, it might be less about meal prep, because there's not many 10-year-olds that are going to prepare a meal, right? But do they do other chores, right? Do they help with the dishes, or do they, you know, stir some of the food when they're sitting there cooking with mom or dad, you know, that kind of thing? Do they make their bed? Do they clean their room? Do they just, again, that developmentally appropriate? And then like for an adult, what the focus is really on what level of support do they need in meal prep and all pieces and components of meal prep. Okay. So also in the amendments is the updating the self-direction model. We don't have time to go through all that today, so we're going to talk more in detail about that in a future meeting. I know there's a lot of questions about that. I think we can all agree this is a very positive step for individuals and families we support, and we are thrilled to be able to offer this across all our HCBS. It provides some great opportunities for people. So again, this is a win for those we support to be able to do this. And we'll talk more about it in a subsequent meeting, but just wanted to again refresh memory on what those services are that we are proposing to allow people to self-direct.
Can you just speak to how that fits in the waiver reset? Is that on that? Is that bound into that as well? Okay.
Yes,
Gotcha.
yes, yes.
It's-
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
one of those things, I think there was a lot of, feedback, but internal focus too on launching that sooner.
Yeah.
Rather than
Yeah,
later,
yeah.
and I will say, which I don't think we have the data, but we have seen a significant growth of utilization in the existing waivers that allow that, but I think, what we're talking about is offering that across the array, but really changing the model
Yes.
to fit more appropriately, I think what most of us understand self-direction
Yeah.
to be.
Correct. Yeah.
I have questions, but I'm gonna hold.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what
please
we'll
do. Yeah, that will take some time to go through. So, but again, just wanted to highlight, we'll talk about that some more, but it is a very positive step in the right direction for our services and supports. And then also in a subsequent meeting, we'll talk more in detail about the behavior support services and the proposed reconfiguration of those services, but just wanted to highlight that again for this
Yeah,
group.
but before we move on to another slide, I would like to, and I made plenty of public comment. I won't go through all of that. I'm sure that you can imagine. Well, this is the exact presentation that was presented to us in June with these exact things. And you and I have talked a couple of times, and you've been very forthcoming in communication. I appreciate that. One thing that was not ever discussed at the previous meeting, and then it came into being with the proposed amendment, was among the documentation requirements is a line that has never been there before, which was signature of individual. And there is some reference basically to like electronic visit verification. And I don't want to necessarily relitigate. We went through a lot 2-3 years ago about EVV. But as it pertains to behavior support, it's contradictory. One of the new parts of the configuration is in the components is strictly an indirect service, which is level 1 supervision or clinical supervision. You can't get, I mean, what, am I supposed to go meet my BC in a client's home to do that? That doesn't make any sense. You can't do that. In addition, there's BSP preparation, FBA preparation. There's meeting with teams, there are calls with mom. You know, there are all these things that you cannot get a signature for. And in fact, one of the things that you added, which nobody has, in fact, I did a survey of the membership for NABC, and the vast majority of people supported this, which is the 75%, 25% of direct versus indirect. By your own definition now, 25% of the time, we're not going to be anywhere close to a client, at least, right? And, or at most, one of those, I'm not sure. So it doesn't make any sense that we need to have signatures in this service. And I'm going to be blunt, and I'm not trying to insult whoever wrote the amendment. It kind of just looked like a copy and paste from other services, like, okay, here are the documentation requirements. And then, and my colleague, Katie Stafford Cunningham, and I spoke about this before. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of borrow what we had talked about beyond just behavior support, because I think she was going to make this point today, which is with EVV being specifically added to things like RHS. I mean, if that was purposeful, that's problematic. But if it was an accident, I mean, at that point, I think that the greater provider community will want to relitigate the whole idea of what is appropriate for EVV. And the state and providers really came to a basic conclusion that, you know, it maybe makes sense for a PAC or respite. And I don't mean to, I don't know that much about PAC and respite services on a day-to-day basis. You know, I've supervised them, but I've never implemented them myself. So as it pertains to behavior support, I think it actually doesn't make sense. It's internally inconsistent, and I would invite you to change that. As it pertains to other services like RHS, this will kill big providers. And, you know, big providers provide a heck of a lot of supports for people in this community. And I can tell you that the panic button is on red alert among providers right now. And I'm not talking about just behavior support. I'm sorry, Katie's not here to make this point because we talked about it, but literally, please do not just insert EVV in a waiver amendment that hasn't really been described or discussed or anything else. And maybe I'm hoping that it was just an inappropriate or an accidental cut and paste, but that will absolutely kill large RHS providers. So please take that out.
So a couple of things. Thank you. First, we did receive public comment. I don't remember who it was from because I don't really.
A little of it came from me.
But we are looking at that language and looking to clean that up.
Thank you. We all very much appreciate
Yeah,
it.
so appreciate that, anyone that made those comments, well, we appreciate all comments, but those, because that did highlight some areas that we needed to
Thank you.
to further clarify. There are services that do require signature.
Yes,
You know,
right.
but okay. So yes, thank you, Jim. Thank you. Okay. Want to get to this as well. So case management. So today, we have, case management provided through, for the family support waiver and the CIH waiver. And we have a specific structure for that is, a 1915 B4, but what that means is we can selectively contract the case management waiver service for the family support waiver and the CIH waiver. We moved to that in 2022. It was actually implemented January of 2022. In the world of health and wellness and traumatic brain injury waiver, that is not, case management is a waiver service provided through the waiver, no selective contracting. Two different kind of ways of providing case management right now. For the family support waiver and the CIH waiver, we have 6 case management providers. For the health and wellness and TBI, we have 37 case management providers. Big difference. So, yeah, when we, yeah, right, yeah, well, good point. For about 15,000 people, we have 37 case management, versus 30,000 plus. So, and 6. So, we moved to this elective contracting for case management, like I mentioned, in January of 2022. And we did that, and I'm gonna try not to talk too much about it. Because case management is an area I'm very passionate about, because in a previous life, I did case management, and except for this job, Kelly, it was the best job I've ever had. And the most fun job I've ever had. But it really is. And we recognize, we did that, moved to that before at the time based on feedback we received from individuals and families and other interested parties, certainly. But we did that because we recognized an individual's experience with home and community-based services is intricately connected to that case management service. It is foundational to home and community-based services. It is that case manager is that family's touch point, their sounding board, their connection with HCBS. So we did that with an implementation in January of 2022. As you all, I hope know, because I think I bragged on it in a previous meeting, we're required to do an independent assessment of the case management, selective contracting. That was done. That was posted with the renewal that was recently approved. And it was quite positive about the quality of case management on the family support waiver and the CIH waiver. Some of the things they pointed to was some of the monitoring that as a state, we do have case management today on FS and CIH. And that is largely possible because we have 6 providers of that service. The quality guide that we have for case managers on the family support waiver and the CIH waiver was also a big plus and a positive, in the training and resources that are available to the family support and CIH waiver case managers. There are opportunities for improvement, of course. They were spelled out in that report as well. Additional technical assistance to case managers. I think the surveys were a plus, but the use of the data that we get from our monitoring of the case management. So there were opportunities for improvement, but moving to that before, we have seen some increased quality in the provision of that service for individuals and families on those waivers.
At first, I was a little against, being forced to have to pick which company under the CI, which it worked great. My concern now, I'm being told, well, you have 6 companies you can pick from, but you cannot pick what case manager you want. So like we have Aspire. He had a case manager that he's had for a long time that went to Inspire. That's why we picked that company. Well, now I was told today on my way here that she can no longer be his case manager, that they have to take the case manager that's in his county. So he has no choice on who he gets as a case manager.
Maybe we need to connect after this.
Okay, because I don't see, why it has to change.
Yeah. We can connect. And talk through that. Yeah. If not today, soon we'll connect for sure about that. So I appreciate being informed about that. So, anyway, just adding on, we wanted to let this group know that we have the intention of moving to a B4 for all of BEAD's waivers in 2026.
This year.
Huh?
This year, right?
Yes. I feel like that's next month.
Yeah.
Federal year calendar.
July of 26. July of 26.
Okay, I found there, they have calendar.
You anticipate the RFP to come soon.
Yeah, me too. And I can't really get into
We
like
can't say a
details
whole
and that
lot
sort of
because-
thing because it has to go through an RFP process. But I do want to share, I do recognized this would be a change for individuals and families. And I also want to say when we first moved to the B4 on the FS and CIH, it went exceedingly well for individuals and families. And credit to Kathy Robinson, 2 seats in for that, because she led that effort. And it went very well, and we've seen positive changes. So we do intend to move in that direction. And this time.
Do you have a target number of, do you have a target number of providers?
We're not ready to talk through all that yet, but
Thanks.
I'm comfortable saying it's not going to be 37.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
I would expect it, so.
yeah.
I know you guys don't always get kudos, but it's allowed us to get a lot of good information back. The Q-tip meetings and everything have been really very favorable.
Yeah,
So
and we
thank
have
you.
seen really great collaborative relationships with those 6 CMOs. It really is, we want to move things forward. We want to do what we can to support individuals and families, and how can we work together to accomplish that? And that, if that's where we're focused, we're on the right path.
I know we're short on time, so maybe this is a future topic we could talk about related to this, because I do think it will be helpful to families when you're trying to pick through companies and you've never done it before, and there's a lot of choice and you don't know, right? And so but just wondering if we can talk about in the future, like if there were any lessons learned from implementing in 2022 that will make the process smoother, because families were reporting that they were making the switch, but maybe communication took longer and things. And of course, bumps in the road, new things, but just since this has been done before, if there were any lessons learned to maybe make it a little smoother for families and individuals in 2026.
Yeah, no, great feedback. And we definitely did learn some things through that first move to the B4. Okay, gonna move ahead. Just included these. I'm not really gonna talk about these. Yeah. Not gonna really talk about these because you all can see those, and if there's questions, if you wouldn't mind, because aren't we done at 12:30? Okay.
You want to allow
Write them down, and we can cover them in the next meeting, or I'll put the slides back in. So for next time, but I do want to go ahead and go to just some discussion about waiver reset, because it's been woven into everything we've talked about today, right? And when I talk about waiver reset, we're really talking about that full reset. So you can see here some of the things that we've been doing. The second box there talks about adjusting and aligning the services at the end of December. Then moving to contracted case management in 2026, which we just discussed, which I cannot stress how important that will be to get that done and get case managers trained and stabilized before we reset the waivers. Because what we're really talking about with the waivers is replacing what we have today with those cross-disability waivers. And remember me talking about case managers again, my love for case management being that foundation of HCBS services. They're the person that literally is arm in arm with the individuals and families as they navigate the world of HCBS, right? So we've got to get that done so that those individuals and families have that case management in place to help support them through the waiver reset. And we'll be looking at new service arrays. So things that we are key considerations with the waiver reset. We've talked about this. This is, sustainability, and not just in the climate we're in today, but I think I'm going to age myself here and talk about how many years I've been in this field, which is a really long time. But I think we can all agree one of the common goals we all have is that our services and supports would outlive us, right? If I'm gone tomorrow, things, I want to do what I can today to make sure that our waivers exist far into the future. for individuals with disabilities and their families. So we have to think about sustainability as we design our systems, as we navigate our systems today. And we have to think about that inclusion piece, right? How do we support individuals and families in a way that doesn't just, that their lives aren't just paid services, that they are building their connections in their community. And if they already have those connections, great. Our services support maintaining those, right? If they don't have those community supports right now, everything we do should be supporting them in building those connections, right? Now I'm getting on my soapbox. feel very strongly about that. If my life and the people in my life were all there because they were paid to be there, not that they don't care about me, not saying that. I'm sure my car mechanic cares about me when I bring my car in to be fixed or whatever, but the people that improve my quality of life are those people, my friends, my family, however I define that, right? So how do we continue to build a system that supports that supports people building the life they want with those informal supports, those resources and relationships that people without services have in their lives? How do we build a system that provides those opportunities for people with disabilities, and then they can use the services to fill where those gaps are, or at least some of those gaps? Our lives are better that way, right? So it's not, when I talk about sustainability, it's not that that's the primary concern, but if we really focus on inclusion, that connects to that sustainability too. If we're helping folks connect to other things, and build those other relationships. So again, some other considerations: enhancing the focus on integration and inclusion and building those connections so that individuals aren't, we're fostering that independence in their community and they're less dependent on paid services, whatever those services are, right? And I have stories I could tell you, and I won't because we don't have time, number one. Number two, I get really emotional when I talk about a few folks that I've known for many, 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 many years that have been in our services through waiver services, and what their lives look like before waiver services and what their lives look like now. It's pretty amazing in some cases. So we want that opportunity afforded for everyone.
I know we're so short on time. I think one thing to highlight in this, in these graphics here too, is the contributions that are the people that we support with disabilities make to their communities is often overlooked. And a lot of our folks have gifts that are elevated when they go through VR or sometimes not. But I think if we're really talking about building that integration and inclusion, discussing the value that people with disabilities bring to the community has to be part of that conversation too, because truthfully, if we think about this entire meeting, we've talked about all the services, we've talked about how many people, we've talked about costs, and we haven't talked about what that brings to Indiana, what makes Indiana good because we do these things. And I also want us to consider that maybe we close with that at the end of these meetings. We close with what gifts people bring so that we can keep moving forward in a positive way and remind other policymakers of how important this work is in making Indiana a good state and a model state.
Thank you. Yes, I would agree. It's reciprocal relationships and
I was thinking
opportunities to engage
here
in those reciprocal relationships. I agree with you. Thank you. All right. That was the last.
We still have just a little
We've
bit of
covered
time.
questions. Yeah. So are there any questions? Any comments?
Lexi, I meant to, do you want to talk about the SAI picnic? I apologize. I remember you guys wanted to share about that. Were you gonna say that? Sorry. I meant to do that at the beginning. Do you want to share anything? And I don't want to put you on the spot. Lexi, can you hear me? Sorry. Sean, do you want to share too? Anything?
Yeah, I was saying.
She might.
Sure. Yeah, don't forget that the SAI picnic is, for you guys that don't know, it's Self-Advocacy of Indiana picnic. September 5th at Hummel Park. We're hoping to break, we almost broke 600 last year.
What time does it start, John? Do you know?
10 a.m.
10 a.m. to
3.
10 to 3. Are you, is there a dunk tank where we can dunk it?
No, they're not allowed to do the dunk tank anymore.
Dang it, I like that dunk.
Bring some
Rules.
water balloons or something.
How about you climb up in that?
No.
Because that was not very comfortable climbing up in it. Especially.
It's not meant to be comfortable,
The
the dunk tank.
higher.
I have a question for self-advocates of Indiana. Can people with developmental disabilities or who identify as a person with a disability attend the picnic, even if they are not a member of Self-Advocates
Yeah.
Indiana?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I just wanted to
Good
make sure.
point.
Yeah,
I don't think
do
everyone's
that.
always aware.
Yeah, that's a good
Very good
Yeah,
question.
good question.
And I wanna also let people know that don't know that we have been trying for like a couple years now to get people to come, people with disabilities to come and sell their products at the picnic, and we have not had any success in that, which is really weird to me. Of all of the providers that has, at their places that they sell stuff there, but why can't they bring it to the picnic and sell it to
Yeah.
other people? So there is that.
I've been reminded, it's 10 to 2.
Oh.
10 to 2, okay.
10 to 2.
Okay.
Go to Sean's house to
Sean.
After party at Sean's.
Party at Sean's, 3 o'clock.
Sean will be taking donations for his new roof.
Character guy keeps staying until after 3 o'clock because he's always got.
So 10 to 3 on September.
Now, I'm old enough,
Okay,
I'm old enough, it reminds me of the old Dr. Pepper 10 and 2, right?
We'll look at and follow their social media, obviously, and we'll put some things on social media. And like you said, not just for people who are, part of SAI, but, anyone, so. Okay. I'm gonna share a quick, statistic Kelly reminded me, because I thought this is really awesome. So Kelly and I have been working very hard on the, not DSP, Lisa, but the, what we're calling, home and community support professionals. And just wanted to share some statistics that is really cool as we roll this out of how many people are registered, how many providers are registered, how many learners we have so far. So we have, and again, this is from about a week ago, so it's only as the day that we ran it, but 517 groups, so that's like provider agencies that have registered. A little over 2,500 people, certified learners. So those are people who have taken the training and had passed and are certified. And then over 14,000 have gotten into the system and registered. Insane. Like Kelly and I were like, that's amazing, right?
Yeah, because
I was shocked, because we've been pushing it, but it's amazing.
we've also, I think everyone knows, we have no idea truly
Yeah.
how many direct support professionals, direct service workers we have out there. We've heard over and over again today, right? Providers, dearth of providers. And when people say that, they're talking about that direct service worker. I think really trying to get a lens on just how many and where.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think that can help, not just the state, can help us. Really move forward, and I just see this as such a big part of reset, just having this information. Yeah.
So yeah, it was pretty.
That was 2 weeks in.
Yeah, we.
No,
this
longer than that.
This
Um,
long-
15 days, July 1.
July
Okay.
1.
Oh, yeah, July, right.
But I was shocked. I mean, again, that's total users. So that's not folks who have that's people who have logged in,
But I
received a username.
But I shared with Jessica, I was driving to work early yesterday, I think, morning, and I saw that I had a,
Oh, yeah.
message, and I looked looked, and it was a gentleman, I think many of you know, I came from the provider world, and he had worked with me. And he's been in this a long time, one of those great people, and he goes, hey, I just finished my HCP, credential. He got the credential, and he said, and guess who signed the certificate? Because my name is on it. But it made me so happy. I said, I'm so glad to hear you're still doing it. And he was like, yep, this is year 18, very dedicated. But I thought it just was that we finally are moving this forward, and this training and registry sprang forth really from advocacy groups. ARC was a big piece of that, NRF and the individuals. I think the information is going to be useful, but also just that standardized, consistent training, just that ground level training across the state, regardless of who your employer is or where you live.
Yeah.
Parking lot. Data question, on the SAMHSA side of things, they have to report penetration rates of services. Are you collecting that kind of, when you have people register, are they doing, like, giving you what county they're in so that we can see, like, on a
Yeah,
heat
they're
map?
giving us, oh gosh, I have to remember.
We've got quite a.
Yeah, I can't remember specifically, yeah, they're giving us counties and what folks they, yeah.
As you,
I can't remember.
and as we move.
You,
Yeah.
because that's a data point,
Yeah.
knowing the.
We're reporting stuff as well
Yeah.
as CMS, we have to report a
It'd be
lot.
great to see here.
Yeah.
Actually, there's this vision of
That's
really
awesome.
kind of being
Yeah,
able
for
to
sure.
share that publicly. I think for providers, that's entities.
Yeah, provider entities will also.
For
get-
individuals interested in the field,
Yeah.
like knowing
So I'll
where.
put that in your email. Part of our request through Management Performance Hub was to get that kind of data.
Yeah, I mean, we're waiting in terms of, because this doesn't officially, you don't have to be registered until January, so we're not sharing tons of data publicly because it's not.
And you know that
accurate yet.
come December.
So, yeah, but yes,
Yeah.
that'll be, yeah, for sure. Yeah, okay.
Those maps are so helpful,
Yeah.
the heat maps of prevalence rate by county and.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay, all right, thank you guys all for online, and we will see you guys, and remember, October is virtual, just FYI, virtual only, so we'll put that out. All right, thank you.